All right. Welcome to the first episode of the podcast, the pilot episode. Cheers.
Cheers to the next phase of a date night in.
Oh, a date night in. A date night in.
You got a drink or it's bad luck.
Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. Delicious. Delicious. A little seltzer, nothing crazy. So, Kyle.
So, this has been a long time coming. We've been talking about starting a podcast for a long
I was
time.
about to say, it's been long enough, right?
Yeah, it's been a couple of months, actually.
It's probably been longer than that since we've been talking about it.
I think we've been more seriously talking about it for the last 2 months or so, but there's so many reasons that we wanted to start a podcast, and it just felt wrong not to.
That's fair. What made you want to start a podcast to begin with?
I think really what it is the driving force is that we wanted a space to be able to talk about all of just not only the content creation experience that we've had, but the life experience that we've had. And there's no one platform that we share content on that is the perfect space for it. Because,
you're not wrong.
I think that this is it. This is the type of format we were looking for that we didn't have.
Oh, I like that. So, what do you think that the podcast could bring that streaming on Twitch isn't, or can't, or won't, or fill in my blank there?
Sure.
That's what she said.
I think the podcast is meant to be a space where we can talk about all of the different things that may captivate a certain audience but drive other people away from what we're talking about, because I think sometimes some of the topics can be polarizing. And I think that there are some times where people get uncomfortable in the spaces that we typically share content when we talk about polarizing things.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, that hence the name, a date night in, right?
Well, sure.
But speaking of which, I after you finish that statement, I would like for you to kind of transition into what your content is, right?
Well, I think what our content is.
Well, let me rephrase that. I apologize.
But I think really what it is that there's so much that we can say that is polarizing, but because we're typically known for a lot of people to be a safer, more comfortable space, those polarizing subjects become more extreme in that space because people aren't ready to talk about that kind of stuff. But, I think A Date Night In was created as our brand name for a lot of reasons, because when we looked at how we wanted to share content on the internet and share about our lives, it was not necessarily meant to be just me, just you, but also about us. And, for anybody who doesn't know about us, I know many of you listening are probably viewers from any form of our content on another platform, but just in case anybody doesn't know, hi, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Jonathan. Very nice to meet you. We're A Date Night In.
We are A Date Night In. We decided to name the brand the way that we did for several reasons. I think A Date Night In really encapsulates who we are, because, in the years that we have been together, there have been many phases of life where we have struggled and had to find creative ways to share time together and make meaningful memories and have date nights, but at home, right? Whether it was
absolutely.
budget or, for both of us, we both have serious food allergies. And so kind of when you think about a standard couple in the United States, a lot of the, date night situations
Right,
involve,
we can't go out to dinner and have a couple glasses of wine with a nice steak at a lot of places. It's actually quite tough. With both of our allergies combined, it's just it's nearly impossible.
Basically, the only places we can eat are Domino's and Papa John's.
For real though.
And a handful of,
and even then, it's still a little risky. But
no, exactly. Like a handful of small town places in certain cities, like where I'm from and where you're from, but not where we live, not where we actually are at.
Well, we're in a tourist area. It's pretty much
Sure.
it's more tourist driven.
Sure. So I think, one of the things that we thought about is how can we share about the recipes that we make in our kitchen and why we make them. And that's kind of where it started. The bulk of it, of course, is food, but the backbone of it is us. I think that's the way I would describe it, is, the bulk of it being food, the backbone being us. And
I like that.
We really wanted it to be a way for us to share our life with people, but, to help people who, for whatever reason, also could not have date nights out, whether it's budget, need to have a babysitter if you have kids, because having a trustworthy babysitter and paying for a babysitter on top of a date night alone,
it's tough.
so tough, right? You want to go out to dinner and maybe you want to have a couple drinks, and then you have to have an Uber, and you have to pay a babysitter and tip for dinner and drinks.
Also, the economy, the way that things are today, it's just so expensive. It's more affordable to cook a 5-course meal at home with a bottle of wine, I mean, that's the cost of an Uber these days, really. I mean, not exactly, but, I mean, hell, a 30-minute drive in an Uber is going to cost you, $35, $45, and there's your dinner right there. Spring forward a little bit more money. You got yourself a bottle of wine and a nice movie, or just, a board game, a puzzle, whatever it may be.
Absolutely. And I think, for us, one of the things that has been beautiful about our brand being named what it is that when we started it, we were not in this place in time where we are, where groceries are up so much, the cost of living and rent are up so much. And so
crazy.
Now we're in this space in the last, I would say, year and a half or so, maybe 2 years.
Yeah, I would say north of 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say I think we really started to feel it the most in the last maybe year and a half, 2 years or so.
I would say we really feel in the past year.
Yeah.
I mean, looking back at the budget, for our dinners.
For sure.
What did we come up with? It was like 30% increase as far as like food pricing.
33 to 35% increase in how much we spend on groceries in a month, and we're most of the time a 2-person household. Other than when the kids are here. But I think one of the things that has been so cool about it has been that with this struggle that so many people in the world are facing, it's given us access to more people who are looking for what we're trying to put out into the world. Because we're trying to help people who can't have date nights out for whatever reason. Maybe that's because you can't have a babysitter. Maybe it's because of your budget. Maybe it's food allergies. Maybe it's where you live. There's not a lot of things to do because, of course, people might live in a rural area where there's not much to do for, miles and miles and miles. But also just recognizing in the years that we have provided content that there's so many people who are stuck at home because of whatever it is that is their situation, whether it is, inability to drive or something that's, a condition that they have and they can't really leave the house much.
I mean, also, I'm thinking there's a lot of people like me where I don't like going out. I don't like being in big crowds. It's too peoply outside for me to go out.
The world is too peoply. The world's too peoply for sure. Especially being in a big tourist city, we find that every time we leave the house, we come home stressed and we just want to hide in our caves. And, I think the cool thing about it is that in the years that A Date Night In has existed and evolved, we have found a community of people who are regular, viewers of our live streams or, consumers of content in any way we produce it, you might say, that are also people who like to stay home and don't really want to go out because the world's too peoply or something along those lines.
Honestly, it does. Like with our Twitch community, it's very, very refreshing to see, a lot of like-minded people popping in, right? And, regulars and everyone's hanging out and doing pretty much the exact same thing that we are.
I think it's funny because, us being at the stage of life we are, right? So for those of you guys who don't know us much, we're in our early 30s. I just turned 30 and and you're 31. And so, for a lot of people our age, what they're doing is going out to bars for happy hour, going out to dinner, those sorts of things. And that's just not really ever been our lifestyle. And, we've been together a long time. And that's just not really the kind of things that we've ever liked to do for fun. We just don't live life that way.
It's different when you're in your, like, early 20s. Like, when you turn 21, you're like, oh, let's go out. And, I think that I've had in my life far more than enough terrible experiences as far as going out and terrible conversations at the bar, and just I don't know. I like being at home with you. It's
I think it's the most comfortable. Place. I think one of the things that we've always talked about in the years we've been together is that home is a feeling, not a place, right? And for both of us who have lived in multiple places, it is definitely something that is a feeling. But I think the reason it is a feeling is because we curate it to be that way. And, I think for a lot of people, they enjoy being out, and that's fine, and that's what works for them. But we are trying to cater to people who maybe don't feel that way. Yeah. And just
don't get me wrong, I do like going out, like every now and again. Like I don't mind going around, walking around the strip mall, having a couple beers. That's fun. That's nice.
It's a change
during
of pace.
certain
I
during
think it's a
certain
change of
times.
pace is part of why it's so nice for us. But
It
you know,
is.
I think because we're able to create such a nice environment in the space we have, we're perfectly comfortable to stay at home in our pajamas and make dinner together and watch a movie, as opposed to going somewhere else and letting someone else make our dinner
Right.
and paying, $50 for movie tickets and popcorn. Because
Yep.
why do that when you could save money at home? And I think that that's another thing. We always looked at it as starting out as that, and now so many
Yeah.
more people are craving that. How do I save money? But you can create the
Well,
same.
it's not only that.
experience.
It's more personable, right? When it's just you guys, like us, when we're at home together, we find things to do, whether it be, cooking together when we're not streaming, or just dancing in the kitchen to some random music, a little Frank Sinatra, just little things like that. It's just it's fun, and it creates that bond, and it just strengthens that bond.
I think when
Right.
you remove the outside world's presence from that, absolutely, because you are kind of automatically forced, and I don't want to sound negative, but you're kind of forced to create a different connection because there's not outside forces and things that you're focusing on.
Yeah.
It's
It
not.
gives you a more natural feel to said date night.
Sure, absolutely. And like we both have always been more comfortable at home, choosing a movie to watch in our pajamas, knowing that if we want to have dessert, it's right there, or, we made our own dinner and we're comfortable eating it, or whatever the case may be. We've always found those things that are comfortable at home. But, I think that it's been something that has taken us kind of, a long time to kind of develop what feels the most comfortable. But I think
Yeah.
we did a lot more of working towards that because of the way we named our brand, trying
Absolutely.
to stay authentic to what it is and what it was meant to be.
Yeah, no, and I love that. The name, says it all.
We always kind of had the, initial tagline of dinners, drinks, desserts, and date nights at home. And it's evolved, over the
I mean,
years.
in
to be
all
shorter,
fairness, it
but-
was kind of conceived during COVID, right?
Sure, that's
during
true.
the shutdown, it was like, cool, now we're stuck. Well, let's teach you guys how to cook.
Right.
Let's teach you, how to, actually deal with your significant other. That kind of deal. Because there was
Maybe
plenty
we
of
don't want
times
to
when
use
you
the
got.
word deal with.
Well, let me rephrase that. You having to deal with me,
No.
and like basically it was like a video log of your experience in that realm. You're like, oh God, he's home. What am I gonna do now?
I don't think I feel that way, but okay. But I think, a lot of people's
only
lives
teasing.
have adjusted in the COVID and post-COVID-ish, because we're kind of still in it realm. But I think it's, the case that so many people's lives shifted when so much of the world was shut down. And of course, here in the United States
It
versus
was-
other countries, it might have
yeah.
been different. But
Well, it was different all over the place, and nonetheless, everyone at a certain point was stuck at home. And that's really the long short of it, right?
sure.
And I think, like I said, I think the brand encapsulates it perfectly. Really, I think the most difficult part is navigating forward. Speaking of that, like where are your plans moving forward? I mean, obviously the podcast, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big step for us. So
It's a huge step.
to kind of, give some background to where we are now that will help to understand where we are going from this point. A Date Night In was created to be a brand that shares content on social media. Originally, we set it up as a blog. Before there were live streams, we had blog posts, just static blog posts that shared recipes and date night ideas and things like that. And it evolved during the pandemic when everybody was stuck at home to live cooking streams on Twitch. And
I'm very glad you took that leap, to be honest. So I started streaming, and she got so upset. She'd be like, "Why are you spending your free time streaming?" And then I, was expressing to her that, hey, you should definitely try it out. There's a whole food and drink category that I think you would thrive in, because you're a great chef, not only, but also you're very personable. Granted, camera shy at first, but
that's to say the
very
least.
least.
But, I think what's tough is that when and we've both had this experience, you to me and me to everybody else in the outside world that's a part of our lives that didn't understand it.
it's very weird to talk to people who don't know
Yeah.
what live streaming is, and I guess just don't understand the concept.
Absolutely.
Or there's people who are like, oh, y'all do what now? And you're like, hold on.
Right. So especially
Polar opposites.
especially in the COVID world, there's become this kind of like understanding that if you live stream that people just jump to the conclusion that it's, we'll just say spicy content, and you know
Yeah.
what I mean. But it's not that,
I
right?
don't know what you mean.
But I think really what it is that, you know, for me personally, my parents are, you know, older than your parents, and I think that that's part of it. But I think it's also
Yeah.
the case that, like, I, in my workspace when I was working full time, had a lot of people who were, you know, 1 to 2 or more decades older than me, and so this whole live streaming concept was new to them to begin with, let alone what the platform itself was.
You know, I've noticed, you know, talking to a couple of different people throughout the years about it, I have noticed that a lot of people think of Twitch as like another YouTube style platform, right? So like, oh, I'm going to click the go live button, do a 5-minute spiel, and end, right? Versus like, hey, you know, no, it's a live content, so you got to be live for you know, hours and hours at a time to captivate an audience and actually find your people, right? And to be visible for your people to find you.
Right, and you know, I think what's funny is that that's been your experience, and my experience has been more of like the whole, like, if you guys have seen the viral clip of Gordon Ramsay on the
What is Twitch?
yeah, you know, the Next Level Chef show, like, what's Twitch? But so many people just being like, what is that? Like, YouTube was the
Yeah.
only example they understood that was synonymous, but it wasn't the same. Right. So, you know, for me trying to explain to people in the outside world what it meant for me to do live cooking streams, it was like, you know, almost take Food Network shows, if they were live, and YouTube, and combine them together, and it's something like that. And that's the best example you can give to somebody who has no knowledge of this world. Because, you know, from
Yeah, I
the
mean,
outside
exactly.
looking into the Twitch culture and the inside looking out, it's very
Well, everyone thinks of Twitch as gaming. You know, there's a lot of people who are like, wait a minute, there's a whole food side of Twitch,
story
you
of my
know,
life.
which is crazy to me too, because it's like, yeah, it's a lot of gaming, but I think just chatting holds that, you know, holds the majority of viewers, you know, 9 out of 10 times, I believe, you know, throughout the night. I'm sure there's, you know, different eras of time, like if there's like gaming competitions that are being broadcast, but outside of that, I think just chatting, which, you know, just chatting is essentially the same thing as what we do, you know, a little chaos, a little cooking, right? You never know.
But so I think, you know, really what it is that it's been hard to explain to people because until you're in it, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me personally, you know, my live stream of cooking was sort of developed out of your channel's live stream of gaming.
Yep.
And it was kind of on the outside looking in, like, so you're just going to go online and talk to strangers and that's how you want to spend your time? And I just remember being like, this makes no sense. Like, so you're going to go into the second bedroom and be on your computer and play games with people you've never met, and I'm going to be out here and doing, oh, okay, you know, all right. Like,
That's
it
why
just,
I told you should start playing games with me.
right, and, you know, it was just, it's funny because, like, we grew up, of course, being 90s babies.
Oh my goodness.
We grew up in this
Don't
age.
talk to strangers.
Right,
Don't
like,
meet anyone online. Don't
everyone-
jump in a stranger's car. But now you can talk to a stranger online and order a stranger to pick you up in their car.
Exactly, with Uber, right? But, you know, it's funny because we grew up in this age where our parents were always like, oh my God, like, everyone in an online chat room is a creep and, like, a dangerous person and someone you shouldn't associate with.
Which
but
is
it's just,
funny because pen pals back then were a huge thing.
Right.
And everyone always wrote their pen pals, right? And it was like, oh my God, my pen pal, I love them so much.
Right.
And that's essentially what Twitch is,
Mhm.
just on a larger scale, right? Instead of having one pen pal, you've got multiple pen pals, and multiple pen pals have you and other people too. It's like it's a large network, and it's fantastic.
Sure. You know, I think the beautiful thing about Twitch, what I've always said, is that it helps you find people you're meant to be friends with that you would not otherwise meet because of the distance. You know, at this
Yep.
point, we have friends who live in the same state as us, but we also have friends in all other parts of the United States, Canada, people in
Oh, yeah.
the UK. We have people all over the place that we, again, would never meet because of the distance, because there's just no reason we would ever be in the same space and time as them, more than likely, to
Or
have
maybe-
that conversation, right?
Right. Or maybe like, I don't know, what was that movie? I think it was The Butterfly Effect or something like that. Like you walk past that person at some point, you know, in your life, like, and you know, something like this happens, right? And you end up seeing them and you're like, oh, I passed you, you know, on a train, 10 years ago at the airport or something silly like that, you know,
Yeah, it's kind of like those, like,
a misconnection, right?
and like almost like those you realize how small the world is type of moments. Like
Seriously, though.
what's so funny, I think, as a great example. But we came across this person that is a good friend of ours now, who has become a regular staple member of our live stream community and is there every day, and just so happens to have gone to the same school as you growing up.
And now lives across the country.
And like it's so bizarre because we would have never thought it would be that way, right? Or like
It's like, hey, we're in the same yearbook. What the hell?
right, and or
We were in different grades, but like same yearbook.
still I remember like thinking that he was messing with us and just being like, no, like
I
there's
thought
just,
so too, and
there's
then
no
I
way.
remember there was
videos that he sent
Oh,
out the
yeah.
yearbook, and we were like, no way, like he can't make that up, like that can't be it,
Yeah.
Or even just the fact that like a couple months ago we had someone bring their viewers to us and find that like 2 of the people were from Central Florida and are
Yeah.
now regulars, and it's like, oh hey, I just went to the hockey game and whatever, and we're just like, oh yeah,
we need to get back to watching some hockey.
I know.
Or really, we need to get some like tickets to some of the hockey games. That was so much fun. It's just so far away.
We need to go to the Solar Bears games is really what it is.
Yeah, we really
but-
do.
But, I think there's so much to be said for the culture of what Twitch is. And I think for people who have never experienced it, it might be intimidating because they don't know what to expect. But, to kind of give you a little bit of like an insight, at this point in time, recording this episode, we on the A Date Night In channel have been streaming on Twitch for a little over 3.5 years.
I say 3 years.
May 2020
8
was the first stream. And so
We're like right at the the year and a half mark then,
we're
or 3.5
basically-
years.
yeah,
Like,
we're-
to the T, pretty much.
exactly. And I think it's been the case that we've seen so much change, but there's also a lot that has stayed consistent. The kind of the culture of Twitch being that, you develop a community, you develop, a sense of friendship with the people that you meet, you find your niche, you find a category or multiple that work for you to stream from. So, if you guys have never been on Twitch, it's almost like thinking about hashtags on other platforms of different
Yeah.
types of content you might want to consume, whether it's, watching Call of Duty, whether it's watching Fortnite, whether it's watching someone who is traveling to a new space they've never been to before, whether it's food and cooking, whether it's crafting, whatever the case may be.
You know, speaking of that, I was looking at the metrics the other day. Apparently, there's not that many people that know that you can search via tag to narrow down your streams.
Yeah.
Right. So like if you go to the search bar and you just type in like, let's say for me, I want to play Call of Duty, but if I type in a specific game mode, if someone puts that in their title that they're playing that specific game mode, it'll filter all the nonsense out, so I don't have to sit there and scroll and scroll and scroll. But looking at the metrics, only a handful of people use the tags, to locate streams, versus like just scrolling through and trying to find, right?
Sure. I would say that in the past couple of months experimenting with the tag system, we have found that on the live streams, most people find us, if they find us via a tag at all, via English language or chatty.
Chatty, yeah.
Chatty, because they're looking for interaction. Because, what we find a lot of the times is that there are a lot of people on Twitch who are learning English for the first time and looking for places to practice.
Oh, yeah.
Or people who are looking for content they want to consume in only the language they understand, as 2 examples, right? But,
Right.
Chatty being one of the places that people go to because they want someone who's going to, communicate with them. Because one of the things that we understand is that not all live streams are created equal in the sense that every live streamer reads every message from chat or can read every message from chat.
Exactly.
Depending on the flow of this and the speed of the chat and how it moves. And, some streamers are just not able to. Some streamers just choose not to, whatever the case may be.
It's a weird thing, to see that. But there's quite a few streams that I've come across that the streamer won't even look at chat, and you're just like, oh, okay, cool. Like they have no alerts, no chat, and they're just trying to do it. And I get it, and I'm all for it. Do what you want to do, and if you're comfortable doing that, I'm all for it. But there is something to be said about the room, right? So like when you're live, being able to actually read everybody's message and being on the opposite end of that spectrum. Like when you pop into someone who actually acknowledges you, you're like, oh shoot, hey, I actually feel important here. Let me stick around a little longer. And then you get roped into the conversation. Before you know it, you're talking with the streamer, you're talking with other people in chat. And it's a very nice, and most of the time welcoming, right?
I think especially these days with how many streamers exist, right? It's refreshing because
That's the word,
not every
refreshing.
stream exists that way. As a person who's popping in to a Twitch stream for the first time, whether you're a first-time user on Twitch or first-time visitor of said stream, it can be intimidating to understand as a viewer that you may be popping into a place where everybody who's watching and chatting is a regular and knows this streamer and knows their background and knows the other community members and may be a part of, inside jokes and, all different sorts of things, right? And so, it can be so tough.
Trying to fit yourself into the conversation.
Right. And, that's why I think we both are in the stance that, like, when we find somebody new, we're going to watch for a little while and see the way they interact with their community before we even bother to talk, just to see how we feel about the way that they present themselves to the room, the way they communicate with the room, the way the room communicates with one another.
Yeah, exactly.
The viewers in the chat, right? Me personally.
Also the streamer.
100%. And I think I'm often looking for, is this streamer recommended to me because of the category or because of somebody else I watch, right? Because if it's someone else I watch, I'm more likely to know someone in common amongst their community.
Right, like especially if you see someone in chat, like a new streamer, you're just lurking for a minute, and you see someone you recognize, you're like, oh, what's up, dude?
Exactly. And
then it kind of like, that's your gateway in.
Sure. And you might find, like, I've had this happen a handful of times in the past few months where I'm like, okay, I'm popping into someone who's recommended to me because of the category or because of tags or whatever. And, I don't really see any users I recognize in chat. I look at all the different, and that's one of the things I do is when I go to a new stream, I'm looking at the users in chat just to see if I happen to recognize anybody, to just see who is watching them, even if it's distant people that I happen to have just seen their content but maybe don't watch them. Maybe
just names to recognize.
Exactly. And I'm always looking to see who might be there, because that's one of your gateways in. There's so many streams, unfortunately, where it's so tough to build your presence in that community just because it's already tight-knit. And that's not a bad thing.
Well, I don't know.
But it can also, I think it can be both. It can be a good thing because the community is tight-knit and well-supported, but a bad thing as a viewer on the front end who's trying to, find their way in.
Well, sometimes they're just bad streamers. I mean, I remember when
true.
you first started out, you pretty much had instant success. Like, let's just call it what it is.
I don't know that I would say it was instant success, but I also think it was part of the time of...
The time of life.
The time of life that's exactly what I was going to say, but I felt like it sounded weird.
Well, nobody was jumping in and streaming in the food and drink category. The people that we grew up with, right? Like Rusty and Nagin,
Nikki,
right. All these people, like we all started right around the same time. So it was kind of like, you jump in and you network and it's like, oh, hey, everybody knows each other and now everyone kind of shared viewers. So it was a little bit more easy at that point. But what I was going to say was when you had rated that one person, I don't remember.
Oh my gosh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. I don't remember their name because I remember just being like, I'll never go here again. But
no, and that was the reason why we don't blind raid anymore. Mm-hmm. And years later, we still don't blind raid for that reason. We ended up raiding, I don't remember, I think it was 19, right, is what we raided with. Mm-hmm. A couple months into streaming, you raided with 19. It doesn't matter, if you raid somebody with, 2 viewers or 2,000 viewers, right? Mm-hmm. It's always appreciated to be thought of when it comes down to a raid.
Right, and I think real quick we should back up for a second just in case there happen to be people who are here who don't know what that term means because outside of Twitch culture
true.
You may not. So generally what happens on a Twitch stream is when you're finished with your stream for the day or the evening, whatever the case may be, you have 2 choices. You can either press the end live or end broadcast
Which
button,
just cuts it out and it's done.
Right, or you can choose to do something that's called a raid where you say, I want to take my viewers to somebody else that I support to show them that I support them, and then essentially what happens is instead of your live stream ending, all your viewers pop into the live stream of somebody else who is live and become part of their live stream.
Yeah, so you just basically, you pop in, you're like, hey, by the way, we're here.
Right. So it might be like, hey, we rated you. And then it's kind of customary to be like, how was your stream? And you kind of get to know the community there.
Chit chat a little bit.
Sure.
Even though most streamers know that when you get a raid, the person who was streaming, they want to, you want them to stick around for 5 minutes. But that's about all, that's about all everyone gives. Because it's like, hey, you got to clean up. You got to, step away from the computer. You got to step away from whatever. You got to, it's the end of the night, right?
Like you ended for a reason.
Yeah. So like, it's, it's just like, hey, what were you doing? Cool. You tell them what you're doing. hang out for a few minutes, chit chat, and then, you know, it's like, hey, if I got to go, you got to go, and it's no hard feelings. But when we rated that, you know, specific person blindly, she goes, thanks for the raid of, what is that even? Ugh.
Yeah, and like totally discounted the amount of people we brought her way.
She had, what, 2, 3 viewers?
We more than doubled her view count by rating it to her.
Yeah,
is
I
all
don't remember.
And I remember her just like scoffing at us as if we were peasants
Right.
for only
like, thanks
bringing
for
her
your
a certain
little
amount.
shitty fucking raid.
Yeah.
Like, okay, bro. And we sent a message. It was like, hey, first of all, double check that number. Secondly, you're never going to get a raid from us again. Bye.
Yeah.
And literally everyone dipped out too. It was like, wow, like
Yeah.
everyone was really turned off about it. And I remember Discord was blowing up. Like everyone was like, hey, do you know that person? Because they really don't seem to like you.
Right. And you know, I think it's now become the case that we've had to learn a little bit more about vetting various people and trying to understand what they're all about before we associate with them. Because, you know, I think another place that my brain is kind of thinking of going as we're talking about this is the concept of people who are streamers versus people who stream.
Streamers
versus
people who stream. That's a very solid concept.
Because, you know, there's, you know, if you want to break down people who stream on Twitch into 2 main categories. You have those 2. You have streamers and people who stream. There are a handful of people who look at this as if it's a hobby. It is a side gig or something they just enjoy doing.
I'm here now, so I'm going to go ahead and press the go live button.
Exactly.
Right. It's like no schedule, right?
Sure. They just kind of do it when it fits into their life. They may do whatever they feel like doing. They may switch between categories.
And that's perfectly fine, too.
Sure,
It's so much fun to do that. That's what I do.
Right.
That's what I do these days. I love it because it's like, you know what? I'm playing games. I may as well click the go live button. I feel a little chatty.
Sure. And I think there's so much of that, but there's also a culture of people who do this as their full-time job, and so we kind of break it down between streamers and people who stream because there are 2 groups of people, right? You may be in this to find friends, to share your life, to have a hobby, to get out of your shell, whatever the case may be, but you may also be doing this as your job. And so those people kind of, you know, approach the concept of streaming and the way they run their streams differently, right? You know, because one of the things
very differently. You know, I mean, there's a lot of different aspects to it. You know, you can go in being you know, veterans such as yourself, right? You can go in and you can see, you know, you can pretty much immediately tell within, you know, the first few minutes of who's a veteran streamer and who's not. And then it's really not that much longer. You can tell about whether they're, you know, a hobbyist or a actual streamer, like a full-time streamer.
Sure, I think
maybe veteran streamers, I guess.
Veteran streamer is a good way to explain it. You know, I think one of the things we talk about a lot, this concept that I explained. So, you know, as a person who maybe doesn't understand or doesn't know much about the realm of Twitch, there are 3 classifications or 3 main classifications. There's a total of, you know, 4 really, but 3 main classifications of people.
Okay.
You stream when you're starting out and you have no status, no monetization, and you are working towards maybe or not the ability to monetize your channel and make money from it, right? So that would just be a person who's starting out. There's not really a name for it, right?
I mean, no, it's just, you know, it's starting out. It's your, you know, you're green. You're still green.
There's
you know?
not like a title. So then at a certain point, when you hit a certain average, certain number of days streamed in a 30-day period,
amount of followers as well,
certain amount of followers, certain amount of hours streamed in a 30-day period, you end up to be allowed to apply for what is called Twitch affiliate, right? So then you have the ability to monetize your channel, and you can make money from subscriptions, from people gifting subscriptions to other viewers, from people watching an ad on your stream if they're not a subscriber, etc. Right? They can use virtual currency or what's called bits, BITS, to send, you know, additional monetary support your way, right? And then you're working up after that point, after you've signed the affiliate agreement, to what's called Twitch Partner.
Which essentially is just verification on Twitch. You know, back in the day, there was a lot of perks. And, you know, now there's just, it doesn't seem like there's as many perks as there used to be. You know, you used to have a better monetary split, both with ads and subs. You know, now it's all the same across the board. You used to be able to have animated emotes. Now everyone has the animated emotes. You know, there was a lot of perks for being partner. You know, now, I mean, when TwitchCon comes along, you don't even get free tickets anymore, but you do get the VIP, like the partner lounge, right?
Yeah, so partners used to have a lot more perks and benefits to being a status of Twitch partner than they do at this point. But basically, we see this all the time.
But you
where,
get the check mark. Is really what I was
sure,
getting at.
yeah, you
So
get
the
that
check mark.
you get that verified check mark. Which of course, there's another thing that I think is important to be said at this point, because this day and age, you can buy a check mark on a lot of platforms, and you can't.
For real, for like $5. I mean, in all fairness, when you go and check your bank account and you see a premium subscription to X.
Oh, sure.
I don't know that I want that popping up in my bank being like, so what's X and what are you doing?
Right.
Right.
And I think it's funny because I think
Elon Musk just wants everything to be named X, though. I did watch a whole thing. It's actually a really interesting article.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see this article.
Well, I think there was an article written about it, but it was also like a whole interview with him. He wants to turn like all of his projects. So like he's got SpaceX, right? Twitter's going to be X. From what I understand, he wanted Tesla at some point to change their name, or wanted initially for it to be X, and like I guess the board vetoed that.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, there's too many things with the same
Also
type of
from
name.
Mars. Like, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I think he is an alien from outer space. Look at everything he's doing. You can't possibly be doing all that and still have time to go and hang out with Joe Rogan and do silly stuff. You're just like, whatever.
Fair enough. I think it's
Just funny.
no,
I'm sorry. Off topic.
No, it is, but I think it's an interesting subject.
Yeah, if only we could pay for that check mark on Twitch.
Oh, I mean, listen. At this point, we've gotten so close so many times. I would.
my
At this
God.
point, I would
Just
if I
to
could.
get it over with.
I'm kidding, but
I'm not.
I know, because you had to deal with the brunt end of my stress of being like, we're so close. Oh my God,
It's interesting to see it from that perspective, like from like my perspective, right? Because like you're the streamer, like when it comes down to it, right? I'm not there as much as I could be with work and everything else. To see like the blood, the sweat, and the tears that you put into it, and then to
quite literally for all
literally
three.
to get
I'm clumsy.
right there at the very last step. All you gotta do is just that one last step, and then somehow or another, it always ends up being, the end of busy season on Twitch, right?
So shameless plug, if you are somebody who wants to create a Twitch account, it's free. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you can subscribe to our Twitch stream once a month for free and monetarily support the stream. Doesn't cost you anything. It's part of your Amazon Prime membership benefits. But really what it is we're hoping to grow the visibility of our brand in a lot of ways and to reach a larger audience, because we think that there's a lot of valuable information to be shared and a lot of valuable just ability to give people a space that is free from the stress of the outside world.
Exactly.
To be comfortable. Exactly. And escape, distraction therapy, if you will.
Listen, you can't beat distraction therapy, first of all. But also, we're getting close to partner again. So I think, follow. I did on Twitch.
Putting it into the ether. Woo.
Speaking of, let me ask you this: like, why did you choose? I know initially why you chose Twitch, but with all the different platforms coming out and different monetization standards, there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons to all platforms, of course. But what made you choose Twitch? And stick with it, rather, I guess is what I'm asking.
Sure. So I think it's important to note that there's a lot of pros when it comes to choosing Twitch as your live stream platform. And I know that this subject is controversial right now because
it's so controversial right now.
Exactly what you're talking about. So initially I started on Twitch because you were on Twitch and your community encouraged me to start streaming.
Yeah.
And it's funny because here we are, 3.5 years in, and I remember saying like, no one's going to watch me stream on Twitch. No one's going to watch me cook dinner. Like, why would anybody want to watch that?
I told you they would.
And I remember being there like, I wouldn't want to watch me cook. Why would anybody else, And like, if I don't have the confidence in myself, why would anybody else want to show up? But, it's funny because I remember, you and your brother and your cousins and a handful of staple community members were the ones being like, hey, this is the pandemic. Everybody is stuck inside. People are looking for an escape. People are looking to learn how to cook because their favorite restaurants are shut down, or takeout food is not the same because it's not fresh, right? And everybody was kind of trying to learn these new skills and just fill their time.
Yeah.
And it being like, you know what? If there ever was a time let's do it. I remember being so hesitant because like
You were so hesitant.
in the
I all but had to force you to do it.
that, but like also in the days before I did live streaming, you can remember how terribly awkward and uncomfortable I became when you put a video camera on me and filmed YouTube. Like if you know me in person, I'm very personable, I'm very chill, I'm very calm. I can talk to just about anybody and be comfortable. I'm good at public speaking.
Literally,
But
she
for
would
some reason, when a camera's in front of me, I just like shut down and become a robot.
talk like what she was now normally, and then the moment you're like, and action, she'd be like, "Hi, my name's Kyle, and what we're doing today is making this dish."
Also, a lot of blinking. I did a
lot
lot
of
of blinking, and it's so funny.
And a
'cause-
lot of
yeah, a lot of bloopers. But
the
it's
bloopers were fun.
it's so funny because like I remember feeling like that was an insurmountable like challenge. I would never be able to overcome that fear. I would never be able to get over it. And now
You were
it's
so
my
confident
full-time job.
that you would never make it.
I know. And now here I am, and content creation's my full-time job, and it's insane to look back on it. But it's funny, like when people are, saying things about, I like your stream and I want to learn about doing this and I want to start my own. It's like I have so much insight that I could give to people. I won't say advice because it's not advice, but I have
It's
so much.
insight.
I have so much insight.
Trial and error.
Sure, that I could give to people where it's just like there's so many times that I remember sitting there and being like, I'm not cut out for this. And like I said, and I'm not meaning it to sound boastful, but I'm pretty
there it is.
personable. I'm pretty personable.
Oh, okay. Is that the snobby term?
Okay. All right. Enough quoting Pixels.
That's my favorite movie.
I know it is. But no, for real. I think I'm fairly personable.
You are. You're very
I'm
personable.
able to speak well in front of crowds, but for some reason a video camera made me feel
It's not
like
even just that. You're able to hold a conversation when, it's that weird moment where there's like that awkward silence. You can always fill in that awkward silence.
Sure, and I think that it was just so funny because it was the exact opposite when you put a video camera in front of me and I just suddenly didn't know how to be a human. But, so going back to our main topic, why Twitch? It
Yeah.
was partially because that was the
Twitch?
platform we understood because you were streaming on there as a video game creator, right? Your audience was looking for me to start my own stream and looking to support me there. So that was another big reason. And why we're staying on Twitch. There's a lot to be said for the culture of community on Twitch. There is a sense of loyalty that you find as you work towards developing a community as a creator. And, we have seen, of course, many changes over the years, but now we look back and we think about how many of our people who are still with us now as staple members who are there almost every live stream, if not every live stream, who have been there for years.
Oh, my God.
I mean, we're talking almost the whole time, if not the whole time.
Yeah.
And some of those people are people we talk to every single day. Some of the people who are our very best friends in the world these days.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot to be said for the community. So, I started out streaming in a category called food and drink, looking to create connections with people who have the same hobbies as me because I could talk about food all day long.
Oh, she really could too.
And
that's why I love you. And that's also why I've gained probably 100 pounds since we've met.
Oh my God.
You say, oh my God. But
For all of you people who are on my live streams thinking I don't feed him, did you hear this? Did you hear this? I'm going to ask you.
first of all, that was an inside joke. And we're not on the live stream, so I can sit here and say with confidence that I was probably about 160 pounds when we met, and now I'm a good 240. I think last I checked it was 248, and that is huge. I have gained so much weight; it is not fair. But also, your food is just delicious, and also
Thank you.
for everyone out there, this isn't all like just fun and games, right? This is actually kind of upsetting, because she is such a good cook that she has ruined just the basic foods for me. Right, like chicken nuggets were like one of my favorite things to eat with the kids. Like I'm like, I'm gonna eat some chicken nuggets
And he's
with you.
meaning like frozen, like Tyson chicken.
Oh yeah, no, can't do it. Can't do it. I can't even eat like a Vlasic pickle or a Mount Olive pickle. Can't even do it. She's ruined like some of the basic foods because her food is just so good that like everything else is I guess is subpar, and I guess is what I'm saying. So there is a negative side to it. I am just woe is me right now.
You're patting yourself on the back.
Yeah, for dealing with this because this is terrible.
Your life is so hard.
It's a first world problem.
Your life is so hard. But if that's any insight to you into trying our recipes, please try them.
Oh, do it. Or don't if you're
Or don't,
watching your
I
weight. Because they're that good.
But thank you.
I'm sorry. I think this got off the rails a little bit.
A little bit, but that's
sorry.
okay. No, you're fine. I think that, the community was wonderful because as much as you are more than happy to be on the receiving end of me talking all day about food, right?
More than happy.
More than happy because
More than happy.
because you're my best friend and because you're a very supportive partner.
Well, we bounce ideas off of each other,
Sure.
and that's how a lot of your recipes come to life. It's just like that little extra thing. You say, hey, what do you think about this? And I throw a little something back at you. You throw something back at me, and ping pong back and forth until boom, there's a recipe that scores. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and then here we are like, ooh, what if we took the filling of a pot sticker
And turn
and
it
we
into a
turned
burger.
it into a burger and we put a fried egg on it and we just we just go back and forth with this stuff and we just create these recipes that are just
Honestly, that's definitely one of my top 5.
it's such a good one. It's
It
such a
really
good one.
is.
But we sit there and we kind of bounce ideas off each other, and as much as you are more than happy and willing to talk about food and do this, it's not your favorite subject, of course, and that's fine. But I think it was so helpful for me to find people who their passion is talking about food and developing recipes, and they never want to shut up about it, because that's me. I will
for sure, and that's a good thing.
Right, and I consume content on social media to watch recipe videos to get ideas, not only about how to film, about trending recipes, but also about just learning about food, because I like watching it. I watch cooking shows when I'm not streaming. I watch other cooking streamers when I'm not streaming. I watch YouTube videos about food. I read cookbooks. I collect cookbooks. Like, this is something that I'm super passionate about. And so I just remember finding in the early days, some of our favorite people and just being like, oh my God, I could talk to you about food all day long. And just being like, oh, these are my people. These are my people.
I do remember when you started networking for the first time. And you were coming across all these new people who were just as passionate. Literally, she would just be smiling ear to ear, just all day long on Twitch. And I'm like, it's funny how the roles reversed in that instance. I was like, man, are you on Twitch again? What are you doing?
He's like, can you put the phone down for 5 minutes? Can
Just
we watch
5
a
minutes.
movie together, please? Can you not be on your phone during dinner? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't get enough of it. But
And it's heartwarming, but also at the same time, it was actually eye opening to be on the opposite end of that spectrum. Before you started, streaming, this is how you were, and it's interesting to see both sides of it.
Sure. So, I think the community aspect is one of the main things that keeps me there. There are a lot of wholesome, heartwarming, wonderful people. And I think there's also something to be said for the fact that in the 3.5 years that I've been live streaming on one platform, I've been able to create a set of what Twitch calls rules, but what I call guidelines and boundaries for how I protect my space to make it possible to have a space that's comfortable where I'm not being bombarded by the evils of the internet, because
There's always the troll section.
Sure,
There's
let's be
always
honest.
those select few, of course.
in any platform, you always have the people who are gross, the people who are evil, the people who are hurtful, and for whatever reason. And really, honestly, those people are just dealing with stuff that they're hurt, and hurt people, right?
Exactly.
They want to bring other people down. But in the years that I've been streaming on Twitch, we've created a backbone of community that I think doesn't stand for that, and there's no place for that. So
Right, and everyone has very similar outlooks on it, and it's actually gotten quite nice.
And so many people are looking for that space where there is
Safe
no
space, essentially.
exactly that safe space where there is no bullying, there is no hurtfulness. There is, there's of course we kind of call it the good trolls and the bad trolls, right? You have your friends who, for instance, tease me that I'm short, right? But it's all in good fun.
The more you progress in the community, the
Right.
more trollish they get, to be honest.
Right, and so it's kind of but these are people who have been a part of our live streams for years, and
They don't mean anything
They don't
hurtful
mean
by
any
it.
hurtful. Yeah, exactly.
Versus a first-time person who comes in and is like, hey,
Oh, like the person we had the other day who just popped in, and it's just like, oh, who cooks from their kitchen on a live stream? Fat broads. And it's like who hurt you, dude? Who hurt you?
right. Also, say hi first.
Right. So, of course, then a bunch of our regulars are popping in here's how you start again. Hi, nice to meet you.
It would make more sense if you were fat, though, but you're not fat.
Regardless of what it is, it doesn't matter. There's people who are going to troll you for things that have nothing to do with that anyways. Remember, way back in the day, the person being like, what are you standing on?
You wear shoes in your own kitchen.
Yeah, you're
that's
wearing
gross.
shoes inside in your own house, you know?
Yeah, standing on your feet for 8 hours a day. That's not
Right.
taxing by any means.
Right. That's not how you make that, But
Oh, the backseat cooking. Ugh.
oh yeah, but it's just I
I'm
think
it's funny how many Michelin star chefs, and I'm putting
Oh.
quotations up right
Oh,
now,
gosh.
are on the platform as first time chatters too. They're like, yeah, I'm a Michelin star chef, and you're butchering that. It's like, first of all, no, I'm not.
Oh, so many people have so many opinions about knife skills.
Yeah,
Knife skills is a big one, but it's funny because over those years we've created this sense of community where the second that happened, just this past week, a bunch of our regulars are like, excuse you, hello, rude, like what the heck, just jumping to
jump to your defense.
exactly, because that's the sense of community that we've created, where when someone new comes in and is nice and loving and welcoming, and everybody's like, oh hi, nice to meet you, let me gift you a subscription, thanks for being part of the community, we can't wait to get to know you, versus the people who are rude where it's like, no, we're not standing for this. So I think one of the challenges is that as a streamer who wants to potentially look at multiple platforms or a new platform, you have to recreate that space.
That sense of community as well.
Sure.
There's another thing. It's tough. You have your people who are loyal to their platform as far as viewership goes, right? You're always going to have the people who are loyal to Twitch, loyal to YouTube, loyal to Cake, loyal to TikTok,
Facebook, whatever.
Facebook, exactly. And Facebook's a huge one because I remember it was very shortly after you started streaming, Mixer shut down, right? So everyone jumped ship to Twitch or Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Because
many people were offered immediate partner on Twitch if they came over from Mixer and had a certain status over there as an incentive to come to Twitch instead.
Exactly. But also Facebook's monetization standards, and they had just created like their whole, Facebook gaming, which is a whole separate thing, whereas it used to be like your page would pop up on, people's timelines, right, scrolling through, which they still would until they had that Facebook gaming thing. So like it was great because everyone could, pop over there and find new people. And the exposure was very, very nice. And the fact that everyone was networking and it was like a huge thing, just kind of like now, like most recently Kick, right? Everyone jumped ship from where they're at to Kick, trying to, to create another audience. Same with YouTube. When YouTube, switched their platform up, a lot of people jumped to YouTube as well. And also, it has to do with a lot of the big people as well.
Sure, a lot of people who are, small and medium-sized creators want to follow the biggest people to where they're at because they think that's where the opportunity is. And, as a person who is, a small or medium creator in comparison to the big guys, it's tough to think that you'll have excuse me, I'm sorry. It's tough to think that you'll have that exact
She's allergic to my bullshit.
tough to think that you'll have the exact same success, but you one could hope, and
exactly.
that's why
you chase that
it.
instant success. And if you're one of the first people to do it, like Kick, if you're some of the first people to jump over are the most successful, yes. But like now, I think it's too late.
Remain that way from
Exactly.
when Kick got started.
But but again, like if the next hype platform pops up, I don't think they're going to be the ones to jump ship, right?
Sure.
It's a really interesting thing. When you're starting out, you want to find the place where you fit and where the place where you can grow and create your community. But once you find it, you stick with it. You can't leave.
Sure.
It's not good for the brand. It's not good for your community because you lose a lot of people because like I said, you have people who are loyal to their platform.
Sure. Of course, you'll always have people who are loyal to the streamer and loyal to the platform. But, we find that even in the experimental times that we've looked at being on other platforms and trying different things, we've done some TikTok live streams, we've done some Kick live streams, and just kind of looked at the way that it went and just kind of comparing that to Twitch streams. You have your handful of staple people who will always support you no matter where you go. And we're thankful for those people, and we love them, and we appreciate them so much. But growing an audience on a platform where you don't have an audience is tough. And being, I like the word that you used earlier, veteran streamer, It's so tough to go from having a space that feels comfortable to going to some new platform or new space that is, it feels bare. Is the best way I can explain it. It feels vulnerable. It feels uncomfortable. It feels unsafe. because you can't possibly know what people are going to come in and say. It's like we have our settings set exactly on Twitch so that we know that like certain words cannot be used because we don't want them to be a part of the way that we run our space, whether they are
derogatory towards us or someone else.
Another group of people, or just words that are, things that just
misconstrued.
Sure.
At the very least.
Sure.
Right? And those automod settings are fantastic. Really, I was getting at was the, I say really what I was getting at. Another point, I guess, to hit on would be when you're a veteran streamer on your platform and you go to move, a lot of the people don't move with you. So going into a place where you're like, oh, great, no one's chatting, this is weird. And, you go from a place where your chat's constantly moving and you're constantly talking, you're constantly hyped up to, a message a minute or less, and that's a really weird thing to interact with.
Sure. I think you get used to this sense of whether it's the exact same every stream or not. You get used to the sense and the pace of stream. Whether you're playing a game, cooking, you get used to, like, for me, it's like I know that I can, wash and put X amount of dishes in the dishwasher and kind of pace the way I'm reading chat out to keep people engaged, but also to space it out so I don't have as much downtime. Because one of the things that is really tough when you're I'll say baby or new streamer,
green streamer,
green streamer, is finding a way to fill space.
Yes, because you always need to act as if you have 1,000 people in there, even if no one's chatting. Mm-hmm. Because let's say someone, like we were talking earlier, when we go to a new stream, we don't talk for a while. We just sit and lurk and feel the room out, right? And a lot of people are going to do the same thing. So you always want to keep going. Always look at the camera. Always be talking to chat. Even if you're gaming, whether you're in the kitchen, whether you're just, watching YouTube videos or whatever, you want to keep people engaged. And if there's no one there, you want to act as if there are people there and just talk to Gabriel over here in the corner.
Gabriel.
Well, I keep staring at him.
I'm
sorry. I keep seeing that feed me sign, and I'm like, yeah.
If you happen to pop into our live stream, we'll introduce you to Gabriel.
Gabriel's a lot of fun. He's very lively.
He's quite lively.
Right now, he's just staring at me, and it's very strange.
Yeah.
Normally, he's dancing and talking. And No, I'm just teasing. Gabriel's a skeleton because he hasn't been fed. Poor guy.
There's so much lore behind Gabriel.
There really is.
But, even lore alone, there you go. Someone came in the other day to the live stream for the first time. They came in via a raid of someone that we know, whose stream we watch all the time. And they had asked about Gabe, the skeleton that stands in the background. And I gave a response when they said, why is there a skeleton standing in your kitchen? And I gave them the answer, and they said, wow, there's so much lore. That's the word they use, lore, behind that. And I said,
there is, yeah.
We've got 3.5 years worth of, building a community, building lore, building,
inside jokes, kind of, essentially. Sure. Like, once you join the community and you're there, even really just when you're in our stream for, 20 minutes, you get privy to the whole, I don't get fed, I'm fat, so clearly I do. And that's like the whole joke behind it.
Did you hear that?
What, that I'm fat? Everyone heard it. They heard my weight earlier as well, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I mean, you get privy to it. It's very nice, and it's so different on different platforms.
I think especially like when we have like a lot of new people, it'll maybe be max a month before you hear the story of how we met in our first date.
Oh,
and
we
all
always
things.
tell that story.
And it's like there's always someone who's like, I want to know, tell us. And we tell these stories, and our regulars are always like, okay, we've heard it a million times, we'll tune out for a second. But, there's so much to be said for how sharing more about your life and everything can captivate a new audience, and being all about, let's build and get to know each other. Because I think one of the things that I love that our community does is care about, people. I don't just ask where you're from if you join my stream.
Right. It's how'd you find us? What did you eat for dinner? What do you normally like to eat? Do you, like, what's your favorite style of foods?
Sure. Are you a streamer? Are you a viewer? Those sorts of things, and we don't usually ask people's age or thing like that, but eventually it'll come out for most people. But it's so helpful to get to know these people, because it's like for a lot of our stream friends, it's like we know so much about your life that, it's a really cool thing.
It really is. Like, it's above just like surface level conversation. Or let me rephrase that. It goes beyond surface level conversation. It's not just small talk. Eventually, hell, you can pretty much name any viewer, and even me. Like I could probably tell you more about them than a lot of people can, right? Like like our regulars.
For many of our regulars, we know their first name. We know what state or city they live in. We
know their hobbies, their jobs,
right,
what they like to play as far as
pets,
games.
what their pets' names are.
Right. You get to know their
their favorite
them.
foods. And
no, there's a lot of their family members that people bring in too. Like
sure, we know lots of people's moms.
Moms, dads, yeah, heck, yeah.
It's
it's just really interesting to see. Like it's more than just a community.
It's a family.
It's a family, exactly. It's a family. I know that sounds cliche.
It sounds cheesy, but it's not.
Cheesy.
When
I
you're
think that's
part
the better
of it,
word.
you understand that it's not.
Yeah,
Right.
we're a family,
Yeah.
and it's a very nice thing. It's very welcoming.
And I think that aspect is the number one thing that keeps me live streaming where I am, as opposed to jumping ship to another platform.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much to be said about the positives. And
There's a lot of negatives though, but I mean that's just like the popular controversy now is every time a new popular platform comes out, there are so many reasons why not, and then there's a lot of reasons why too, and then as the streamer you get different reasons than the viewer, if that makes sense.
Sure. I think there's
It's
so much
very-
to be said about that because, we in experimenting with other forms of content and other live streams on other platforms, so many of our viewers were saying, why not stay here? Why
Yeah.
go somewhere else? And, I think next time is a perfect time to jump into all of the cons
There
of
is.
the platform that, we choose as our mainstay and all the cons of the other platforms and why we chose this one as the ultimate to continue with because there's pros and cons of all of them.
I mean, especially reading over like the terms of service, some of the things you just you read and you're like, wait a second, I'm sorry, what? I think you're right. I think that is a whole episode within itself.
Absolutely.
I think a whole another episode within itself
Yeah.
is something you said about 5 minutes ago. I think we need to say our origin story, like how we met and our
should.
first couple of dates, pretty
should.
much up until us moving in together.
Which wasn't a very long time.
I mean, you're talking what, 9 days?
Something like that.
9 to 12
We're
days.
weird.
We are very weird, but honestly, that was the most memorable, short period of time that we could have gone through. And it was like a lot of stuff happened in such a short period of time, and it was actually
It's a beautiful weird.
it's a beautiful weird. That's the word. You're right. That's the best way to describe it. It's funny, and it's
There's
that's why we tell the story so
much
often.
to be said for that time.
And we still look back at it and we laugh. Like our first date was just.
Don't give it away.
I'm not going to give it away. I'm not the Red Hot Chili Peppers, okay?
Okay.
Give it away, give it away, give it away now.
All right. All right.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think our next episode definitely needs to be on the cons of switching platforms and the cons of other platforms, because that goes into very great depths, not only about other platforms, but also Twitch. There's cons for literally every single platform.
100%. And there's so much to be said for the difference between streamer and viewer perspective of that. And I think that that's a lot of what we can touch on next time.
We'll call it the controversy.
There you
Dum
go.
bum bum. But I tell you what, you guys, until then, we look forward to seeing you on our live streams on Twitch. Follow all the socials.
Thank you so much for tuning in. A date night in
Absolutely.
on all platforms spelled exactly the same way.
Cheers, you guys.
Cheers.